Good evening, Oak Bloke here, and this is going to be on active ops. So, active ops isn't a share I own. This is something that is sitting in my drafts in my Substack being the oakbloke.substack.com. If you don't know that already, 607 articles and going strong. This one is going to be 608. Looking at this, you might think, oh, right, military share. No, as far as I'm aware, it's not a military share. No militaries have ever used this. Although, who knows? I mean, if you've watched the film Aliens 2, they obviously have a little control vehicle and have little. Yeah, so who knows? No, I'm joking. It's yeah. So this is just a bit of fun and bit of make believe. This is used by banks, insurers, and business process outsourcers. So yeah, nothing to do with military, despite sounding military. It's workflow, it's workforce management, it's case management. So yeah, it's an interesting one because these are actually presenting today. So perhaps some of the people watching this video will have been or are at or at the Mellow conference, which is a conference in West London. So I've never listened to a presentation from Active Ops. I've read their annual report, I've read their interim report, and I've read the updates, and I've listened to some commentators talk about Active Ops. So yeah, so I must admit, when I heard about it, I thought, this is quite a crowded space. There's some very, very large and successful American companies in this space, and I had a look on G2, and ActiveOps is this one here, whereas pretty much all of the competition, as you can see, there's IBM, there's UiPath, there's some real big multi-billion dollar companies in this space. So here you've got this little 90 million market cap company. And the natural inclination is to think, what are you doing in this space? And then I looked at their R&D budget, 1.3 million. Let's look at the R&D budget of some of the other companies, and I think that's down here somewhere. Where this company, Verint, their budget last year was $150 million versus $1.3 million. So it's real David and Goliath stuff. And that, I must admit, put me off considering this. However, I had it there in my draft items, and I thought, you know what? It's been sat there staring at me. Well, not literally, but figuratively for months. Let's have another look at this. And actually, the other thing to comment on is that quite recently it had drifted down to 80 pence and drifted down. And I must admit, I did look at that price drop and think, well, there's no news that kind of justifies that price drop. Would it be worth dipping the toe in? But I don't like dipping the toe in not knowing. So I by the time I did my due diligence, which is today, the price has gone up about 50%. So it's gone from 80p to about £1.22.5p. So not about exactly £1.22.5p. So and I'll explain the with this article. So yeah, I mean, despite it having this very low rating, which was the thing that put me off, I then looked at all of the individual reviews, and I must say the reviews are superb. I mean, this is one of them here. Provides a solution for workforce management, easy creation of duty rosters, labor planning, biometrics, fingerprint recognition, employee tracking, automates payment processes, integrated with HRMS, workwear enhances efficiency, administration is easy, pocket friendliness, whatever that might mean. 24/7 customer support services access. I mean, that's quite impressive. I guess when you've got international customers, you've got to run it 24/7. Um, the, what do you dislike? The free version is very basic. Well, it's the free version, so come on. like, like, like nobody told me there would be fish in the sea. It's like those complaints that you read. You sort of think, oh, like you really complaining. I wrote one recently about Ondo InsurTech, and they get a free plumber that comes to their house with this free device that they've been given by their insurer. And these people are like, oh, what do you mean you're not going to fix my fridge freezer that's leaking? Like, that's not good enough. It's like, well, hang on. You've had a free leak check. You've had a free plumber to come out about your free leak check. like, I think in the Ondo InsurTech, it was what I called the "make me a bicycle clown," the spoilt kid at the wedding, and Vince. Vaughn, is it Vince Vaughn? I think it's Vince Vaughn, says, okay, I am going to make you that bicycle. Like he goes, who are you talking to? Who are you shouting at? Anyway, sorry, we digress. So yeah, so yeah, all very, very positive reviews. It's used by some really big banks. So actually, when you look at the client list, you think, well, actually, that's pretty impressive. And look at the claims, the capacity gain 20%. And if they make use of that capacity, that's a productivity gain, of course. NPS 8.8 increases to 74.8. That doesn't quite make sense to me what that's, but anyway. Saved 7 million in the first 9 months, reduced backlog by 85%, reduced fraud by 1 million. So some really, really strong claims, and that's the actual picture of what it looks like. Can't remember where I got that from, but anyway, that's a picture of what it looks like. These are some of the comments. We set ourselves a 12% productivity gain, and we successfully achieved that. And the capacity gain is the 20 that you saw there, that you see there as well in the annual report. And there's 177 stories. So if you want to kind of read all about, I mean, I haven't watched all 177, but I watched a few, and very impressive, very, very impressive. So really, really good client retention, 108%. Now, what that means in plain English is that if you take the value of your contracts from a year ago, like obviously you're going to get some level of churn, people leaving, people sort of cancelling, but the additions from those existing, let's say 100% from a year ago, are now, even after taking off the cancellers, which are then the churn, 108 means that the on a like for like from last year, from a year ago, it's 8% more than last year. Okay, so say you've got 2% churn, so 2% cancellations, well then that would be approximately 10.5% additions, people buying more licenses, more modules, da-di-da-di-da, all the extra bits and bobs. That then makes it 108 or 106, so it's above 100% retention rate, which is great, and recurring revenue rate based upon the existing base of business. Now, whilst there are competitors that have got hundreds of reviews, thousands of reviews, and also get very positive reviews, I mean, that it doesn't detract from the fact that these have got a niche and they are going after that niche very successfully. They've only got 74 customers, which obviously in some ways is a risk, but obviously when you've got pretty much 100% retention, or at least the retention net of churn is above 100, you haven't got too much to worry about. And as you can sort of see there, these are large businesses, so some really good numbers. This is the interim report, so I'm not going to really talk much about this. We'll talk about the accounts a bit later on. This was the bit where I said, that they're working on AI, but they've got a budget of they capitalised 1.3 million of internal labour, up from zero point 0.9 of a million the year before. I mean, that is a drop in the ocean. It really is a drop in the ocean. I kind of estimate that that's sort of, you're looking at maybe six people with some software costs and bits and bobs around that, but not much more. Maybe, I mean, about six people would be that 1.3. So, and obviously, if you've got real high-end AI developers, they don't come cheap. They're in a lot of demand, as you can imagine. So yeah, I'd expect this 1.3 isn't stretching very far, but clearly they are getting a lot of bang for their buck. It's kind of what I've called the David and Goliath stuff. And, David with his eye for a sharp stone and canny wrist, they can compete against the giants and have proven that. Yeah, and they talk about having AI driven forecasting, planning, service level management tools. Late last year, they were talking about adding automatic skill cataloging, a virtual coach that predicts the interventions required by team leaders and recommends the best course of action to take. So this is all stuff that, if you've ever experienced business process outsourcing, and I've seen it from the outside, I've not worked on the inside, but I've seen it from the outside. I mean, these are just sort of without wanting to appear rude, sort of cubicle upon cubicle on cubicle of lots and lots of people, kind of like battery hens, without wanting to be, yeah, I have said without wanting to be rude twice now, but yeah, it's kind of process management. It's kind of factory work with a white collar on it. So if you've got software that makes that process more predictable, if you make that more focused, if you make that more accountable, then yeah, it's all positive, and you can obviously drive better results and more consistent results when you've got software that helps you do that. And things like this with the virtual coach, I mean, that is something else that just, to get consistent leadership in these places is hard. And if you've got a bad leader and you've got a bad egg, then that can just create a lot of turnover of staff and just problems. So if you've got tools that actually support the leadership in leading, that's a gap that's been in that's a gap in the software market for a long time, in my opinion. So good on them that they've spotted that and that they've addressed that, because I think that's very, very powerful, in my opinion. So anyway, just moving on, the thing that I did spot, that I don't think is obvious, but if you know where to look, is that this SaaS solution is both hosted and on-premise. Well, this isn't true SaaS. It isn't. They call it's SaaS with little, sort of finger apostrophes attached to it. This is going to be Microsoft SQL Server almost certainly, and yeah, IIS hosted. It's Microsoft server based, and I'm saying all of that because there's a lot of price rises going through on Microsoft server, and a lot of stuff going through not just in 2025. In 2025, it's 10% to 20% price rises, but similar price rises last year, similar price rises the year before. Microsoft are really turning Microsoft Windows Server into a cash cow, and SQL Server into a cash cow. And really, if you're running this type of software, legacy software, there is a disadvantage to that. There really is. It's not to say that that's that's necessarily a showstopper, but it does drag on performance as far as I'm concerned. That not having true SaaS is a compromise, and it also means that you've got um, yeah, there's because when you've got on premise and you've got privately hosted, what they'll be calling SaaS is privately hosted, so they'll be the active ops will be hosting that in Azure. um yeah, that's sort of then the whole sort of upgrade cycle and the ease of upgrading. There's a whole minefield around that as well, that just creates complexity, and then supporting multiple versions. And they do talk about different versions, although they also do talk about um, just making the upgrade pathway less troublesome, I think they refer to it as. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind. I mean, again, for me, that was quite a negative, but they gloss over it as you'd expect them to. Um, but it's, as I say, not a showstopper. Uh, Gross margins 84%, which obviously is attractive. The net margin, though, this is the trouble. Like, you can look at this share and say, "Oh yes, look at the profits they make, 84% profit." Yeah, that's the gross profit. The net profit is less than 1%, so they made hardly any money. But can that change? And that's really the question. That is the killer question here, is that, and they do say, "Oh, well, we've delivered double-digit growth, we've delivered record customer wins, strong cash generation." Um, and these are the numbers. So they generated. So their T&I is training and implementation. So that was 3 million in the year to March 2024, dropped to 2 million in the year to March 2025. Now that worried me, actually, for that to be down, and it was at 3.4 million the year before that. um, I mean, there's one of kind of two things that's going on here. Number one, the optimistic scenario is that the software is just getting easier and easier for customers to self implement and self install, and you just don't need consultants in the way that you used to need consultants. That things are straightforward and easy to set up, intuitive. You don't need a consultant. It's much more light touch. That's possibility number one. Possibility number two is that um, the training and implementation is being given away or reduced at a reduced rate, at a reduced margin. We don't yet know what the margin is. We do know that this all rose, so ARR rose from 23 to 28. So total revenue went from 26 to 30, but profit stayed the same. So we know that costs went up. One of the likely ways that costs went up was that there was more training given away for free, is my conjecture. That's all it is, conjecture, but that's quite, I think, a reasonable thing to assume. However, in the 6 weeks since the end of March, so this was 13th of May, this trading update, they said we've already sold 1.5 million of training implementations. So, that's sort of in 6 weeks, they've done 75% of what they did in the whole of the prior year, in 52 weeks. So, in other words, that times nine, they're on track to sort of 6x, 7x the training and implementation sales. Similarly with this, the growth. I mean, you can see here the growth year to year here was about five. Well, less than five, 4.6 million. So they've done 1 million in 6 weeks, and that's with no new customers. That's just existing customers, they tell us. So if they can do the same with the new customers, plus do more of this to existing, I mean, you could easily smash that growth number in 2026. And that growth number, by the way, was 19.3%, which, when you combine the two numbers, that's 13.4%. So bear those numbers in mind, because I'm going to use those numbers in my forecast. So customers grew from 73 to 82. These are big customers. They're all going to be live by the end of June, so by the end of Q1 2026. That was reaffirmed here, so that's all positive. There's, yeah, I've sort of talked about this. And the reason that they're giving away, that maybe giving away the training and implementation, is that I read that they only recognize the contracts when the customer goes live. So obviously, if you can get them live faster, even if it means dropping your pants on the revenue, on the profit of the training and implementation, then that can be a smart move, because then it drops down to your recurring revenue, and obviously to your 7% gross margin. So that's where your money is. So that's kind of, to my mind, quite smart, actually. So yeah, and I sort of make the point there that I already have, that that level of sales, if you can just keep that going, please, folks, then that would equate to 8.67 million over the rest of the year. So yeah, it's all looking very, very positive. Um, so yeah, I sort of noticed that it was seemed to be overvalued. Net cash covered a quarter of the market cap. Well, I looked at this, I was like, well, nah, because what you've got to remember, I mean, this is like Schrodinger's cat. I presume that's how you spell Schrodinger. You can always tell me if I've got that wrong. Don't want the cat to be upset. But because you've got contract liabilities, like that net cash of 21 is not really net available cash that you could take off a market cap. The reason is that this is like upfront cash. So really, they've only got about 5 million of net cash, really, because this is kind of almost like this is cash to pay the bills in 2026. So this is like upfront deposits. I don't think you should value a business based upon the deposits it's got for operations in a future year. I mean, if you're an accountant, you wouldn't do that, because like you want to match together your income and expenditure, but also your liabilities. And 15.5 liability, you wouldn't want to muddle that in together for purposes of valuation. So yeah, I don't buy this thing about a quarter of the market cap is covered. It's not. And this thing about the PE, yeah, I just sort of make the point that it's quoted as being 42.8. Well, when I did the maths, and I sort of did it based upon the H1 results, 1H25 results, which was 0.49 EPS, so times that by 2 to get full year, which gives you sort of 0.98 of a P, which gives you 125 times PE. So it's completely different. I mean, I don't know whether that's just like the 2024 number or some other number. I don't know where that number's come from, but like, as far as I'm concerned, that's the latest accounts. Double that, you get the most accurate price earnings is that 125. So obviously, at 125 times, you've got to be very optimistic, haven't you, to want to buy this? So should you be? I also make the point about this being valued at £1.54 based upon 3.5 times EV/revenue. I mean, I just wouldn't buy a share based upon it being X amount of revenue. That baffles me as to how you can do that. That's sort of like the .com era or something. But I just wouldn't do that. I would base it on cash, and I base it on profit. That's all. That's all I am focused on. Yeah. So just that that I can't do that. But yeah, what I did do and can do is just say, well, look, this is the performance in 2025. These are the growth rates. This is kind of the growth rates post period. So let's just plug these numbers in. Let's put in a whole set of assumptions. I also made the point here that, in the annual report and in some commentators, they said, this is going to have a tailwind of tighter regulation and hybrid working. I mean, personally, I don't get that that is going to be the tailwind. That just like what regulation are we talking about? Don't know. Like, has any new regulation come in the last year? No, not to my knowledge. The Business Processing Outsources Act, 2025. Maybe it has, and somebody's going to message on this and go, "Oh, you didn't know about the so and so law that came in." But I don't think there's new legislation and tighter regulation. The regulation is as tight as it's always been. That's just for me. Um, that's a red herring as far as I'm concerned. And I'd love to hear from anybody who disagrees with that statement and says, "Well, no, you've not considered such and such." But yeah, what I did consider to be the reason that this share is interesting is its proven ability to generate productivity, and to deliver automation. Now that um, and sort of having seen many businesses with their nightmare of Excel Outlook, people's heads, some rubbish ERP system. I mean, it's so bad, even on a small scale. And then if you're looking at these large organizations with hundreds and thousands of people and hundreds and thousands or millions of customers, I mean, the whole thing becomes a logistical nightmare. So yeah, if you can put smart software over that, then great. Huge game changer, and people will pay good money for that and keep paying because it solves a massive problem. Planning dashboards, reporting and insights. Again, the amount of time I've seen people messing around with Excel models and different things to try and do all of that. If you've got a platform that just gives you that in a dashboard, great, because that will sell. SLA adherence for case management. I mean, that's probably the less, but equally as important. And then in things like, I mean, maybe that's where the regulation does come in, that you've got X amount of time to respond on this, that, and the other. So anyway, I think that the AI modules are probably not quite as high tech, high spec as perhaps, like it's got the label AI rather than it being some sort of massive data model driven par excellence. But because at the end of the day, 1.3 million pounds R&D budget ain't gonna pay for much AI. But it doesn't matter. Put a label on it, say that it's AI. It's probably just some logical rules that they've put in based upon lots of experience and understanding of customer need. But that's great, like it doesn't matter. If it works, if it delivers tangible benefits as it appears to be doing so, who cares? Like, and this is the thing that kind of went click in my head today was I was looking at this going, well, like it's garbage, like they're only spending a tiny amount. How can they compete? And then the thought of David and Goliath came into my head, and I thought, do you know what? Actually, that is exactly it, as far as I'm concerned. Now, you might disagree with that statement. You might vehemently disagree. And of course, you know, Goliath, if he gets his hands on poor David, I mean, David's toast. So, maybe there's an element of the competitors are not focused in on business process outsourcers, banks and insurers. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't got enough granular experience of that competitor landscape. Although what I can see is even post period, so in the last few weeks, there's wins, there's success, there, and that success appears to be accelerating. So anyway, um, yeah, so I kind of work this based upon some pretty conservative assumptions. I'm assuming, the costs are going to go up. Yes, that it's going to grow, but I've said, well, I'm just going to take 14.4%, which is slightly, I think it's slightly different to the overall, including that training and implementation down by a third. So I'm saying SaaS will increase by 14.4, which is a slowdown. I'm saying cost of hosting and Microsoft Server goes up, and the cost of extra headcount goes up. So there's quite a lot of things that I've put in. You can see it here. this is up 13%, this is up 41%, 6 new people, 1 new director, that's up 4 million, this is up 10%, that's obviously just 25% tax. That gets me to a price earnings of 58 times for FY26, which I thought, well, actually, that's okay. Well, that's a lot better than a lot better than 123 times. But then I said, well, do you know what? Let me just run it again based upon 19.3, based upon the same growth rate as last year, before they had 6 new salespeople and a new sales director. Or I'm saying sales director, whoever this new director is. I didn't quite understand who they were, but yeah, let's they've obviously focused in on growing the sales function. So if anything, that number should be maybe even higher. Well, look, even if it is just 19.3, so that grows the SaaS from what, 28 to 33. Oh, and by the way, I said 4 million, so we know that it's 1.5 million in the bag, and I'm saying, they're going to get 2.5 more in the rest of the year, which again I thought was quite reasonable. I don't think that's any particular stretch. So yeah, if they get that, then that sort of comes through as 38 million, 30 million gross profit, 2.1 million forecast profit, which is then a price earnings of 40 times rather than 58. So you can sort of see already, wow, okay, well, this is starting to look very interesting. And this is for FY26. So we are in FY26. We're in the third month of FY26. So this is kind of this year's price earnings. Looking back on historic, when you're looking at a growth company, I mean, by the time you realize that its PE is going to be attractive, the price will have gone up and it won't be attractive. So you've got to look ahead. You can't look behind with a company like this. That would just be ludicrous. Anyway, if you go fast forward another year, so 9 months from now will be the start of 1st of April 2026 will be the start of FY27. If active ops achieve the same growth, that grows there, and I've sort of said here that they'll also grow their training and implementation from 4 to 6 million. Okay, and again, I've sort of gone with slightly higher, so this has gone from 44 to 45. I've kept this at 16. I've increased headcount and costs by 5%, increased depreciation. You can sort of see it all there. Even with those increases, I get to a price earnings of 13 times, which, I mean, I've said here, like, even if it's, that it will be at least double today's £1.22 as far as I'm concerned, because that would take it to a price earnings of 26 times on next year's income, which is 9 months away. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm absolutely kicking myself that back when it was at 80p, which was just only a few months ago, that I didn't look at this sooner, because I definitely would have bought it at 80p. Will I buy it at £1.22? I am tempted. But look, none of this is advice. This is, you make your own investment decisions, but that's kind of where I've got to with this. I'll be publishing this article in the next day or two. I mean, certainly that rubbish G2 score, I'm no longer bothered about that. Yeah, I think that just like Victor Kayam, that I think Active Ops could be going for it. And yeah, on that basis, it looks good. So as I say, none of this is advice. This is just you make your own investment decisions, but hopefully you found this useful, this article useful. If you did, and you do, 607 articles here, please do consider helping Emmaus. It's this, go to my website, help Emmaus fundraiser. There's 113 people who have, now at 4.5. Love to make that higher. What this does is it helps people, gives them a a hand up, not a hand out. They get a roof over their heads, as a former homeless person, roof over their heads. But more than that, it's helping them get back on their feet. And they work within businesses that are run by Emmaus. They give back into the system, so to speak. Emmaus also just help them rebuild their lives, maybe give them money for training or just certain things to help them get so it doesn't create this culture of dependence, it creates a culture of independence. So love for you to help with that if you appreciate and like these different articles that I write. And I'm not getting any benefit from this myself other than the satisfaction of helping Emmaus, as well as obviously battle testing my ideas with a cruel world who won't hesitate to say nasty things about me, which is everyone's got their opinion and whatever. I don't. It doesn't bother me. It makes me laugh sometimes to see the bile and the vitriol. uh, and I could give it back as well. Yeah, it's all good fun. It's all good fun. And yeah, so that's enough from me. Oak signing off. Cheerio for now. Cheerio.